Thing is being recorded.
Hi,
Hello.
can you hear me?
1 second. Come again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks. Just checking.
You bet.
Hey, Tatsuya.
Hi, Akal. I'm doing.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
We can wait like 1 or 2 more minutes and then we will start.
Yeah, I see.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Jim. We will wait a few more minutes and then start.
Sounds good, thanks.
Okay, so from some for some reason, I'm unable to share my screen. So maybe someone else can share his screen. Let me paste the link that I wanted to talk about in the chat. So maybe someone else volunteers to share the screen.
Can you
Thanks.
see my screen?
Yes, thank you. So we can quickly go through the second quarter Hyperledger Fabric review that was merged last month. So in terms of project health, Fabric is still a very mature and stable platform. We have the v2.5, which is LTS, and we also have released a new version, a new minor version lately, 3.1. I also encourage everyone that uses version 3 to upgrade to the newest version, as we have merged last month some very critical bug fixes, so that can be good. Overall activity hasn't changed much after the release of the 3.1 milestone. We still are publishing images to the GitHub container registry as usual, and the plans is just to continue maintaining Fabric 2.5 and Fabric 3.1. In terms of maintainer diversity, so we have roughly half of the maintainers are still from IBM, though this number was greater in the past. It has come down. Also, something that should probably be mentioned is that the new Fabric X repositories have been open sourced, and they are all available now at these links, which I just pasted in the chat. If we could open these links, that can be quite nice. Thank you. So we have these three repositories: the Fabric X orderer, the Fabrics X committer, and the Fabric X endorser. And just to remind everyone again, if you do deploy Fabric 3.1, then please upgrade to the latest version, 3.1.1, which we released last month. Thank you for the screen sharing.
Sure.
Is there anyone else that wants to bring anything up?
Well, thanks for the update on the Fabric X being open sourced, which is great. So is the whatever initial release now available?
Well, yeah, it is open source.
All right, but yeah, the point of it's officially available at this point for download and testing.
So first of all, let me make a disclaimer. I am not working for IBM, and the development is currently done by solely people from IBM, so I cannot speak on their behalf.
Yep.
Now, from what I see, the status of the code is still in development. So while I'm sure that you can run it, it's not something you should actually try running anything substantial on, if you know what I mean.
Yes, right. So as an example, when you were working earlier on the first Fabric releases, I was consuming those, and they weren't. You had versions out there that weren't, I'll call it LTS stable kind of a thing, but I was grabbing like your examples in your case and then using them. Not as obviously I wasn't contributing directly, but I was consuming them and then editing them as needed kind of a thing. So I'm guessing we're in that state with Fabric X at this point.
I think so, yes. Let me take a look at the license. Yeah, so they released it with I think I think it's Apache license. So yeah, I mean, legally it should, I mean, you should be able to consume them. But as I said, the status of the code is still in like very premature, and it's still in development. So I would advise against like running it for any commercial
Sure.
purpose.
Right, right. Only for learning, I'll call it, and testing kind of a thing. Let me ask you, and really, I don't remember. I know Fabric X is different in some ways because, in a sense, we're building in what I call digital asset components into it, um, into the, I'll call it the base platform. What else is different? I don't know for sure. But the from an architecture viewpoint, I had worked with Firefly a little bit, Hyperledger Firefly. And what was nice about that architecture, for what it was worth, was it had lots of interfaces for almost every kind of a service. And when I look at Fabric, it isn't quite as what I call pluggable as Firefly was. Does that make sense?
So I would say that Fabric is also very pluggable, right? Because I mean, you can write arbitrary code in the smart contracts, right? So, in my opinion, this is as pluggable as you get from a platform perspective.
Well, all right. So the thing with Firefly that was so nice was they had tons of interfaces for every service, I'll say. And what they would do is they'd say, here's a default implementation I'm giving you for this interface, whatever the service was. And then they gave you, I forget the correct name of it. It was an interface file definition that you would say, oh, I don't like that. I have another service I want to use for identity or whatever it was instead. And you would just configure your own interface file definition and then deploy that configuration with Firefly. And you are now running your identity service instead of the default one they gave you, kind of a thing. And so they had
Yeah,
ledger
I see your
interfaces, all
point.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I see your point. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with the feature in Fabric that is called pluggable endorsement and validation.
No. So, right. My problem is there are some capabilities in Fabric, in my opinion, that were architected that way, but not all. And the difference with Firefly is almost all, not all, but the vast majority were architected that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see. I mean, there are indeed some aspects of Fabric that are not pluggable. For example, you can only use the identity management that come built in with Fabric, which is the X509 based MSP and the IDMX MSP, right?
Right.
We don't have anything pluggable for that.
Right. So the challenge of it is because it's not all interface based, it means you don't have the freedom to grab it and say, okay, it is I'll call it a great platform in many ways. And I'll just say, I'll call it an L1 platform because every time I go look at something over that's based on Ethereum, it's always an L2 that I'm looking at, Polygon or something else. But as an L1 platform, it's infinitely better architected, in my opinion, than everything based on Ethereum. Um, but the challenge of it is, again, that it's not all interfaces the way Firefly was. So you can't just grab it and say, oh, as you pointed out, I'm going to replace the identity or the membership management piece or the consensus piece or whatever the service is that you'd like to do. You can't just replace it easily the way you can in Firefly. And that's a challenge because then you're in a sense limited by the choices that have been made for implementation services, if that makes sense. So I'm
I
arguing
see.
that, when I look at Fabric architecture and the kinds of things that I built with it, like some AWS trading marketplaces, we used Fabric, but it would have been nice to be able to swap out certain features to have I'll call it a more integrated platform. And in fact, one of the things would be changing things like consensus lifecycle, things like that. Those things aren't really optional. That's all. And so it limits my ability to say, "Ooh, I can use Fabric and customize it to fit this need." That's all.
What do you mean by changing consensus exactly?
Ooh, there's so many things. So I'm working for a company called TrustGrid, and they're doing a different version of SSI. As It's a more decentralized identity. In theory, SSI is decentralized. In reality, it's not. So there's like 20 implementations of it out there. And none of them are fully decentralized. What we're trying to do is do one that's more decentralized and more secure. So yes, the one we have is more secure. That's a win. But it's not, we're working to make it um, decentralized at a much higher level than anybody's looking to do with regular stuff. So as an example, can you have transactions that run offline when there's no internet? And the answer is, in our world, yeah, that's a goal for us to be able to do that, period. So what kind of an architecture do you need? Something very different than, say, Fabric. So the best example is think of a transaction lifecycle in Fabric to put something out there. So what it is I'm looking at different events in the life cycle. So one of the biggest things is separating the concept of commit versus finalization. I actually create a different event life cycle for a transaction and separate those two intentionally. And so if you look at very sophisticated database architectures like MySQL that runs for very high performance stuff, much higher than DLT can do, they have a very elegant architecture for transaction commit that's different and finalization. So they wind up committing to something, and you get to choose the commitment point. Actually, you decide as the database architect and administrator where you want commit to happen. What is a commit? You, in effect, define it inside of MySQL, which is pretty elegant. But having done that, the whole system then for, in a sense, writing and reading will honor what we call your commit policies, which is pretty cool. And then you can have decentralized MySQL, just like you can with Postgres or anything else, that is very, I'll say, highly performant from both a read and a write perspective. And so the argument would be, oh, okay, so there's a lot of value in what Fabric does, and it has a lot of capability that all the other platforms like Ethereum based don't. But the ability to scale and integrate, I'll call it decentralized, I'll call it higher performant databases than Fabric can do, would allow the whole solution to scale far better. Sort of like a super.
If you want to scale from the angle of TPS, right? Not from the angle of node count, right? You can scale the node count, but you can also scale just TPS. So if you just want to scale TPS, I would advise you to take a look at Fabric X, right? There is a white paper. I don't know if you've seen it, and I would say that this is as performant as you can get, right?
Well, so I'm arguing that in the database world, decentralized database world, we have achieved far higher TPS than you can do in any DLT, period, by a lot. And
decentralized or distributed?
Distributed.
Okay, but that's not decentralized.
No, it's not. Distributed, not decentralized. So when I say distributed, I don't mean it's necessarily on one node, but it's not decentralized the way I was talking about, which is offline transactions, which is sort of, I'll throw that away as a different use case. But distributed, to your point, and nodes in Fabric are also distributed. And you can say decentralized to a degree, but not the way my other use case was, which is fully offline transactions. But the concept of that separation of commit and finalization and what that means for read and write across a network, in a sense, does matter. And it's why pulling in distributed database and blending it with Fabric, which I've done, I'll say it, in small apps that I put out on AWS for trading marketplaces kind of thing for solar and energy or carbon credits. That kind of stuff gives you the ability to scale better. That's all. And so I'm sort of looking at it and saying, okay, the worst of the worst is honestly Ethereum because everything over there is going to be slow, point one, point two. You're limited horribly by that architecture that has things like built-in gas fees, just stupid stuff that are constraints all over the place. And
well,
so
sorry, but I mean, gas fees are not stupid.
they are. So no. The fact that they're required makes them stupid. That's the problem. So they're not handling a broader set of requirements is the argument. You're stuck with them. So I've actually worked with some of the platforms over there what was it? Not Altrium, but there's another one. I think it's Arbitrum as an example, or one of the other ones that I worked with. Their claim to fame is they've found a way to disable effectively the gas fees that are required by the users of the system. So in a sense, on the inside, there's still gas, but architecturally, but they've in effect given you the ability not to pay them. So the assumption that you always need gas fees is a bad idea. And there's a bunch of those kinds of constraints built into Ethereum. It's why you have Besu to add permissioning over there because they don't have it by default. So a richer permissioning model, I should say. And so there's many things that are wrong with that platform, but I come over here and the idea being you want to have an architecture that allows you to do certain things for certain, I'll say use cases, I guess the ones that I've looked at that are maybe higher performance. And you still want, in a sense, what I call the transaction ledger authenticity you get with something like Fabric integrated into your solution.
So what is your performance requirement? Like how much TPS do you need in your use case?
So when I look at, typical payment applications that are not complex stuff, you're talking in a, 100, 200, 300,000 TPS kind of a thing, to do whatever it is, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Stripe, go down the list, and those. And the other thing is and you different, to your point, different types of transactions and complexity. Some are simple, some are complex in terms of, well, I'll say validation. So separating validation from finalization, and Fabric does that nicely because you have validating nodes. So you can have, say, 1,000 nodes that are, in a sense, represent the decentralized ledger, but you might only have 20 nodes that are responsible for validation, which is actually a very cool concept. So those kinds of things are improvements over normal DLT architecture for sure. And all I'm saying is that there's opportunities to, in a sense, think architecturally different than the constraints that Fabric has built into it that limit it from moving into some of these other areas. And FabricX, to your point, is trying to up the game on TPS and also trying to correctly, I think, pull in the concept of digital assets, among other things, into the base platform, which is nice. But again, I'm pushing it back and saying, well, wait a second. What about the architecture? Can we do things like this that make it a more open platform? Because it's an open product. And in my experience, anyway, it's been a far better starting point than Ethereum, but yet gapped for some of these other things that we've had to work around. So
okay, sure. So what I suggest
so you put me down as a complaining fan.
Yeah. So what I suggest you to do in that aspect is to go to the FabricX GitHub, for example, the FabricX endorser, open an issue and explain your use case and say, hey, I really want FabricX to have pluggable authentication. And I don't know, I mean, maybe they will hear you, maybe they won't, but at least that's, I think, the right channel to voice.
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds like the right thing to do. Thank you. That's awesome. Thanks.
Sure. And I listed here in the chat, if you can see, the FabricX repository. So you can pick any one of them. I think probably the endorser is the most fitting place, and write that.
Yep. Yeah, cool.
Okay, very nice feedback. Anything else from anyone? All right, appears that not. So have a nice rest of the day and the rest of the week, and see you next month.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, cool.
Yes,
One
yes.
minute. So we are having a we are having a chain code. Okay, we are running a chain code in a dent. Okay, so we are running a full setup in a containerized manner in a Kubernetes. Okay, so we are having a multi-peer setup also in our system. So where we are having a 3 peers for each node. So we are having maybe a 2-node system. So let's say if we are using a 2.5.5, SDK client HLF Fabric version, and we are using a Fabric gateway. This is the client, and we are using the HLF 2.5.5. So in this case, when we are trying to trigger this, like from the client side, when we are trying to call the peers, let's say node 1 we want to call, so we are having a 3 peers. So from Fabric gateway, there is an option to call 3 peers. Also, there is a provision to configure only 1 peer. Correct.
Sorry, can you repeat what you said?
So the thing is, so there is a HLF 2.5.5 with
Yes.
Fabric version. Okay, so there is a
Yes.
client Fabric gateway client. Okay, from the Fabric gateway client, we are connecting to the HLF 2.5.5. Okay, so we are using a Fabric gateway. So Fabric gateway uses a Fabric peer discovery to do the connectivity and do the invoke and query on the chain code. Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so now the point here is now if we are having a 3 peers setup. So for in the blockchain, we are having a 2 nodes. Each node has a 3 peers: peer 0, peer 1, and peer 2.
Each node has 3 peers.
3 peers. Okay, so node 1 has 3 peers: peer 0 node 1, peer 1 node 1, peer 2 node 1. Same way node 2 also, peer 0 node 2, peer 1 node 2, peer 2 node 2. So this is the configuration, let's say. So now we are when we try to call the peers, so one node A, when we are trying to invoke a chain smart contract on the node A. So from the Fabric gateway, we are configuring one. There's an option to configure the peers. So we can configure all the 3 peers, or we can configure only 1 peer also.
So you're basically asking how many peers can the Fabric gateway client work against, right?
Not how many. So how let's say if we are configuring 3 peers from the client gateway, how it is getting distributed.
Oh,
Whether it is calling only one.
So yeah. So I unfortunately I have absolutely no clue in the Fabric gateway client.
Okay.
I don't know. There are also like several implementations of that, right?
Yeah.
Which
So there are
implementation
several
are you
implementations.
using?
There are Fabric client, right? Fabric gateway. Just let me configure. It's not very old, but very recent only.
Come again?
The recent one, I'm not sure about the exact version. Just give me a minute.
No, but like which? I thought there are several implementations in different languages, right? The client, the gateway
Java.
client.
It's the Java client.
I mean, I have no idea, but if you can just message me on Discord, or actually, you probably should
We have
message.
posted this in Discord also.
Come again?
Okay, so we have already posted this in Discord also, but there was no response for
Maybe
this.
you can try to tag. His name in Discord is Best of the Day, something like that. You can tag him. He wrote
Can I just
the
ping
Fabric.
the name again?
I think it's. Let me find you. Just a second. Yeah, so I posted his name in the chat, so you can tag him and ask him. He is the gateway guy.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I don't do client. I didn't do client side, so I have no idea. I only know like node and peers and orders.
Okay.
Okay. So good luck and thanks everyone, and see you next month.
Thank you, Jakob.